We'll advance to the first slide there, Warren. We are unfortunately don't have the technical abilities that we do in the church here. We don't have the same setup, so things are a little awkward. But you can see here, I asked ChatGPT to give me a list of the classic rock songs about waiting, and you'll see some that you recognize. Maybe I recognize all of them. Some I like less than others. Hold the line, come on. Yeah. And then Waiting for a Girl Like You. That was part of the soundtrack I made when I put together for my wife. I asked her to marry me. There were a lot. Let's go to the next slide. In Isaiah 40, verse 31. Go ahead, advance. Okay, I'm sorry. I've got to advance when I tell you to advance.
Okay.
It's part of the frustration dealing with things that work and things that don't work. And this is PowerPoint, and PowerPoint doesn't like Mac, and Mac doesn't like PowerPoint. And so Isaiah 40, verse 31 reads this way: "But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Ditch the slideshow.
Okay.
It's not worth it. Gaps of life. Ever heard that term? If you've read the book that we're going through, yeah, you've heard the term gaps of life. That's a euphemism for waiting. The Bible calls us to fill the void of uncertainty by waiting on God. Voids of uncertainty, gaps of life, that's where we are.
Not be backlit.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't need to be backlit or frontlit. So, what do you think of when you think of waiting on God? All of a sudden, you feel spiritual, right? What do you think of when you think of waiting on God?
Uncertainty.
Say again.
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty. There you go. Okay. What else? Impatience. Impatience. Weariness. Protection. Okay. What do you enjoy waiting for? So how do you enjoy waiting when there is some stress or pain involved? You know, we don't like waiting in the first place, then we add stress or pain or something like that, and it gets even more onerous, doesn't it? Rather than worshiping our way through uncertainty and experiencing peace, our tendency is to fill the gaps of life with fear, anxiety, frustration, or anger. Most of those apply to me. For most of us, waiting feels like a waste. We're frustrated by wasting our time. We have things that we want to accomplish. We're going places, we're doing things, and then all of a sudden, living on what I know to be true about God when I don't know what's true about my life. When I run into those places in my life where I am faced with my limitations, then all of a sudden, I'm stopped. And that's when God needs to enter the picture. And oftentimes God doesn't enter the picture for us. Not because He doesn't enter, it's because we don't bring Him in. You will wait in this life. The question becomes, how will you do it? How will you wait in such a way as to bring transformation and peace? I mean, does that concept, can you even get the concept in the same room? Waiting and transformation and peace. Let's talk about the honesty of waiting. Waiting's hard. Psalm 69, verse 3. I am weary with my crying out. My throat is parched. My eyes grow dim with waiting for my God. Waiting's hard. Everyone has expectations of the way things should be. We want to be in control of our lives. When those things don't happen, tensions start to rise. As Christians, we need to think clearly about waiting and understand that worldly views of waiting vary widely from a biblical view of waiting. Do we need to change our viewpoints? We need to change our perspective about waiting. When you find the word wait in the Bible, this is important. You should always look for the words that word wait is pointing toward. Now, if my PowerPoint were working, I'd have this wonderful example of stuff. You'll just have to listen for it. I will try to give emphasis. I'm not going to emphasize weight, but I'm going to emphasize the words that are being focused on by the weight. Okay? So Psalm 40, verse 1. I waited patiently for the Lord. Psalm 69, verse 3. My eyes grow dim with waiting for my God. Romans 8:23. We wait eagerly for adoption as sons. Titus 2:13. Waiting for our blessed hope. 2 Peter 3:12. Waiting for and hastening the coming of the day of God. Throughout that. You can see waiting is a thread that you will find is a theme throughout the scriptures. Andrew Murray says this. This is the blessedness of waiting upon God, that it takes our eyes and our thoughts away from ourselves, even our needs and desires, and occupies us with our God. Wait upon God with a godly attitude. That's what happens. So let's talk about not wasting our waiting. Psalm 106, verses 13 to 14. But they soon forget His works. They did not wait for His counsel, but they had a wanton craving in the wilderness and put God to the task in the desert. There's a connection between the failure to wait and our misplaced desires. Go back to, we have things that we want to do. We have things that we want to accomplish, and then life gets in the way, and we have to wait. And we're frustrated. We have lofty goals. And that leads to heightened emotions, typically negative emotions, surrounding that. Think of some biblical examples of waiting. Do we see anything in Exodus? Maybe say about chapter 14. the people are there on the shore of the Red Sea, and what's happening? They look up, and here comes Egypt. Here comes the army, the chariots. And what did the people say? Listen to this question and think, have I ever asked this of the Lord? Why'd you bring us here? That's what they're asking Moses. What are you doing? You know? They said to Moses, is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you've taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us in bringing us out of Egypt? Is not this what we said to you in Egypt? Leave us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. You hear the frustration? Now here we are waiting. It looks like we're going to get wiped out. Think about cross the Red Sea and move up to Exodus 32. Moses has been up on Mount Sinai for a while. And what do people think? What do people say? They're waiting. Moses is up there 40 days. The question is, we don't know what happened to this guy. So what did they do? They go about their own plan. Hey, that's the golden calf. When is waiting hard? When is waiting not hard? When is waiting not hard? Because waiting brings with it what? Uncertainty. It brings with it delays. It brings with it disappointment, pain, powerlessness. Who wants to sign up for those things? It's like putting out the Southern sign-up sheet. Nobody's going to sign up for that. Unless Quinn puts your name on it. It was rich. Rich is here to defend himself. But we have to be honest that waiting is hard. And then we come to waiting is frequent. It's common. Think about it. James chapter 5, verses 7 and 8 say this. Be patient, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient about it until it receives the early and the late rains. You also be patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. James wrote that 2,000 years ago. So patient, for the coming of the Lord is at hand.
Yes, so John, this is not only wait, but it's watch. Watch and wait go very, yes, you can't wait unless you're watching. Right? You should be watching. Right?
See what's my phone.
One thing worse than waiting, wishing you had. There's one thing worse than waiting is wishing you had. Had waited.
Yes. Well, listen, we will get to watching. That's certainly an aspect of waiting, and I'll deal with that specifically. But you're way ahead of me. You're doing well. There's a great quote in this book, and I love it. It's, you can't buy manna in bulk. If you try to go down to Costco and buy manna, it doesn't do you any good. You can go out in the field and glean more manna than you can eat in 3 weeks, and what's going to happen tomorrow morning? It's going to be nasty. God is saying, I'm giving you today's provision today. It's a daily provision. Why? Why was manna given as a daily provision? build faith, build trust. So you know. And for 40 years, what happened? You walk out in the morning, there's man on the ground. Let's collect what we need for the day. That's God's grace. So, pray the Lord's Prayer. Give us this day our daily bread. Yeah. Waiting is hard, but waiting is normal. And God uses waiting to grow us. Where do you wait in life? Think about that. Where do I wait in life? How often do I wait? Think about today, okay? You've had a myriad of experiences this morning. 9:58. So where have you waited? Waited for the computer to, try to download and change over from Keynote to PowerPoint while everybody's singing an extra song, doing that kind of stuff. I got into the line today to get breakfast. Had to wait there. This waiting happens all the time. We're constantly in one way or another. Plus, there's the overarching waiting, the big waiting stuff. So, waiting is a part of our lives. Listen again to that. Be patient, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient about it, until it receives the early and the late rain. You also be patient. Establish your hearts. The time of the Lord is at hand. Waiting is part of the creative order. It's just part and parcel of life. We've been conditioned away from seeing any delay or uncertainty. Having none of that is, we have whole industries that are geared toward that one thing, is doing away with delays and uncertainty. Yes.
There's a lot of social pressure too. So a lot of people who don't wait, who don't want you to wait.
Right.
Hey, think of the honking horns kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah, everybody's in a rush. Everybody's got their place to be. If you're driving down 270 some morning, you'll know, everybody's going somewhere. So, thinking about driving through the McDonald's, and I don't do it very often, but they used to have you pay at the first window and the second window you pick up the food. And I remember there was one McDonald's that I used to go to that the team was always, they were great. They worked hard to have. By the time you pay, they would have your bag and your drink out the window waiting for you. So as you drove up, and if you didn't have a drink, it was real easy. You just grabbed the bag and you didn't have to stop. Right? And they thought that was the coolest thing. But that's how life is in the U.S. for sure. In this Western culture, we don't want to wait for anything. Even just to stop the car and get your drink in your bag. If we can get past that, that's even better. Biblical examples of waiting. Can you think of anybody who waited in the Bible? Abraham. You think about Abraham and his waiting. You think about just how many places in Scripture that we find people wait. And waiting is just a way of life. Who has a Bible here? Anybody? Okay. If you have a Bible, or if you have a Bible on your phone, if you've got a phone, you should have a Bible on your phone. Just Somebody go to Psalm 25. Somebody go to Psalm 27. Somebody go to Psalm 40. Psalm 25, verses 1 to 3. Somebody read that, please.
To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. O my God, in you I trust. Let me not be put to shame. Let not my enemies exalt over me. Indeed, none who wait for you shall be put to shame. They shall be ashamed who are wantonly treacherous.
None who wait for you shall be put to shame. How about Psalm 27, verses 13 and 14?
I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord.
In Psalm 40, verse 1.
I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry.
Somebody turn to Isaiah chapter 8, verse 17. Somebody turn to Isaiah chapter 33, verse 2. Somebody to Hosea 12, 6. And somebody to Micah 7, 7.
I will wait for the Lord who is hiding his face from the house of Jacob, and I will hold him.
Isaiah 33.
The Lord is gracious to us. We wait for you. Be our arm every morning, our salvation, our trouble.
Okay. Hosea 12, 6. Micah 7, 7.
But you must return to your God, maintain love and justice, and wait for your God always.
Micah 7, 7.
But as for me, I will look for the Lord. I will wait for the God of my salvation. My God will hear me.
And how about Romans 8? Somebody go to Romans 8, verses 22 to 25, and somebody go to 2 Peter 3, 11 to 12. Romans 8, 22 to 25.
For the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves, who are the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies. For in this hope we were saved. Now hope that is seen is not hope. For who hopes for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience.
Okay. About 2 Peter.
Since everything will be destroyed in this way, what kind of people ought you to be? You ought to live holy and godly lives as you look forward to the day of God and speed its coming. That day will bring about the destruction of the heavens by fire, and the elements will melt in heat.
Okay. We are waiting. We are waiting for big things to happen. And we're waiting for small things to happen. We're waiting all the time. In various levels and in various perspectives. Waiting isn't a supplemental experience for the Christian. It is central to the Christian life. Following Jesus involves a life of waiting. And so waiting is what you do when you can't do necessarily what you want to do. So how do we respond poorly to waiting? We've talked about some of these already. I'm going to give you a couple of ways that we respond poorly. One is anger. Anger is a secondary emotion. Anger comes after, and it's immediately. I mean, it's like right there when we're disappointed and we're frustrated in some way and we get angry about it. Sinful anger is simply our attempt to take control. I feel like I'm out of control, I'm going to try to exert myself and take control. Anger does that. Rather than living on what we know to be true about God, we choose to live on what we're going to do right now. Think about that. When you're waiting and you enter into a situation where you're waiting, what are you choosing? Are you choosing to try to take control? Or are you choosing to wait on the Lord? Or to rest in what we know is true about God? Anxiety. is another one. Anger is external action. Anxiety focuses inward. It's internal thinking and processing. Rather than blowing up, we turn inward with a mental and emotional journey that can be exhausting, it can be debilitating, it can be overwhelming. Rather than learning to wait on God, we try to think our way out of our limitations. And guess what? You're limited. You're not going to think your way out of it. And that brings out anxiousness, anxiety. You get enough of that, and guess what? You go to the next thing, the third thing that we're going to talk about in 4 responses, and that is apathy. Anger demands action. Anxiety wants to think about it. Apathy stops caring. People who are apathetic have grown weary of hoping, only to be disappointed again. Apathy is a defense mechanism which controls our disappointments. It's a way to protect ourselves. Brings us to a third thing. We need to be honest about it. We need to recognize that waiting is part of life. And then thirdly, we need to be thoughtful. We need to be intentional about our waiting. Waiting is difficult. Psalm 25, verse 3 again. Indeed, none who wait for you shall be put to shame. They shall be ashamed who are wanting and treacherous. None who wait for you shall be put to shame. If God said, that He acts for those who wait for Him, it says that in Isaiah 64, verse 4. God acts for those who wait for Him. If that's true, then I can keep waiting by focusing on what I know is true of Him. Instead of focusing on what I don't know, I begin to intentionally rehearse what I do know about God. I know these things are true about God. In the midst of my waiting, in the midst of my frustration, anger, apathy, or anxiety, whatever it might be, what if I replace that with thinking about what's true about the Lord? What I know is true about Him. Waiting requires living by what I know to be true about God when I don't know what's true about my life. It's kind of one of the themes of the book that Mark has written. Waiting requires living by what I know to be true about God when I don't know what's true about my life. I don't know when I'm in stopping go traffic. I don't know when it's going to start flowing. I don't know if it's just not going to stop dead and you have to sit here for hours. All kinds of things like that. I don't know if this surgery or that surgery or this travel or that travel is going to be successful. Waiting reveals that what we believe about ourselves and about God. How we handle waiting shows what we believe about ourselves and how we believe about God. It challenges our dreams, it challenges our expectations and our abilities. Waiting is a frequent and awfully painful reminder. We don't control things. God does. We're being reminded that all these things are beyond our control. So biblical waiting is what we're all about here. And so to be a Christian requires waiting. Can't get away from it. Can't escape it. In the Old Testament, waiting, the primary word that's used for waiting in the Old Testament is kabah, which to look with eager expectation. Is to look and hopeful for something. It has the idea of looking forward to something or the arrival of someone. Now, if you've ever had kids that have gone off to school and they're coming home, you know about that. You know what it's like to look for them, to wait for them to come home. But with that idea comes the idea of tension as well. Think of a cord being pulled or twisted. There's that idea as well. So there's a little added tension there with this word. Listen to these examples. Psalm 27, verse 13. His soul shall abide in well-being, and his offspring shall inherit the land. The friendship of the Lord is for those who fear him, and he makes. Well, that's not. Sorry. Forget that. Let's go to Psalm 40, verse 1. I waited patiently for the Lord. He inclined to me and heard my cry. I waited, and he responded. But I was waiting, and there's tension there. I'm looking forward to what he's going to do. Isaiah 33:23, your cords hang loose. They cannot hold the mast firm. They'll keep the sails spread out. They prey and spoil in abundance. It will be divided. Even the lame will take the prey. Isaiah 40:31, but they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. We must wait for the Lord. And look at that. He will renew our strength. Biblical waiting is active. Biblical waiting is intentional. Oftentimes when we are forced into a position of waiting, we think of that as being passive. But our response needs to be active. It needs to be intentional, especially when life gets twisted and complicated. To wait and to hope are interchangeable in the Bible. It goes together. Understanding the biblical connection between wait and hope invites us to shift our focus from what's not true about our lives and to what is true about God. At this point, I'm waiting. I'm not getting to do what I want to do, so I need to remember what's true about God and know that He is going to bring me safe through to the other end. The next word is this word is more about spiritual patience. It's related to trusting in the promises of God, especially through painful circumstances or challenges. Listen to Psalm 33:20. Our soul waits for the Lord. He is our help and our shield. Isaiah 8:17. I will wait for the Lord who is hiding his face from the house of Jacob, and I will open him. Isaiah 64:4 again. From of old, no one has heard or perceived by the ear. No ear has seen a God beside you who acts for those who wait for him. These are wonderful promises. Looking forward to what's coming. Waiting is the spiritual posture of endurance. It's important to understand that waiting on God is how we respond to difficult delays. You know, I want to go to the promised land. You just got to wait 4 years. And the first generation is going to die in the desert. Putting this together, it's clear that biblical waiting is active, it's intentional, when life is filled with tension. From a biblical perspective, to wait is hope. And hope is to trust. So we are to wait and hope, we are to wait and trust, and to wait is to have faith. You know, to wait on God is to believe that He will help you. Now, let's look at New Testament waiting. There's nothing passive about waiting on God. In fact, there are two foundational means to receive and to watch. So here we go with Richard's got, gold star. Watching. Both of those things imply a particular kind of the Greek word dekon. To receive or accept is the most common word in the New Testament for waiting. It captures the idea of someone waiting for something outside of themselves. There's a need that must be met from outside. I can't provide this need. I'm waiting for it to happen. I'm waiting for it to come. Jude 21. Keep yourselves in the love of God, waiting for the mercy of our Lord Jesus Christ that leads to eternal life. Galatians 5:5. But through the Spirit, by faith, we ourselves eagerly wait for the hope of righteousness. There's another word, prostakeo, relates to watching. And it's an active looking for something. Like a lookout, scanning the horizon. Looking for a sail, looking for someone coming. In 2 Peter 3:11, we hear this kind of waiting. Since all these things are thus to be resolved, what sort of people ought you to be in lives of holiness and godliness? In the context here is the world, the destruction of the world. Waiting for and hasting the coming of the day of God. According to his promise, we are waiting for a new heavens, new earth, in which righteousness lives. Looking for, active. The idea is to live in spiritual watchfulness. Waiting in this context isn't something that happens to you. It's an intentional way to live life as a Christian. And you're looking for what God is going to do. So the biblical definition of waiting, and what we typically think of as waiting, are very different, aren't they? We don't tend to think in biblical terms about waiting. We tend to think in terms of, I don't get my way right now, kind of things. Modern dictionaries define waiting as a pause, an interval, or a delay, or to remain in a state of temporary inactivity. And we need to change our understanding of waiting. But that's a worldly understanding of waiting, not a biblical understanding of waiting. Looking to God with hopeful watching and faith-filled receiving is what it means to wait. So let me give you a fourfold strategy for waiting fast. Everything is waiting fast. Waiting fast stands for focus, adore, seek, and trust. So a fourfold strategy here for waiting. You need to wait fast. So let's look at focus. Change your focus. When things happen that cause you to wait and it feels like you're powerless to do anything about it, will you be consumed by that gap-centered mindset, or will you choose to have a God-centered perspective on it? This is a spiritual opportunity for you. Loss of control becomes a means of spiritual growth. It's easier said than done because of the powerful emotions associated with having to wait. You have to overcome some of your emotions. Now we talk about anger and anxiety, apathy, and frustration, and all those things that might come with all of a sudden having to wait. Don't waste your waiting by being angry or anxious. Listen to David again, Psalm 25, verse 1. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul, O my God, in you I trust. Let me not be put to shame. Let not my enemies exult over me. Indeed, none who wait for you shall be put to shame. Now, that's a great verse to memorize, so that when you do get stuck all of a sudden in waiting, you can just say that verse. None who wait for the Lord shall be put to shame. Praise the Lord.
What's that verse?
That's Psalm 25, verse 1 to 3a, first chapter 3. And so that's focus. Next is adore. Adoration. We did that pretty well. We have a praise team, which is all about adoration. It's about all their stuff. It's about adoration. But we need to worshipfully rehearse what you know to be true about God. When you're waiting, it's a great time to sing. You may not feel like singing, but it's a great time to sing, because that will change your focus. Adore the Lord. Fill the gaps of life with the glory of God. Fill the gaps with worship. Psalm 25, verse 5. Lead me in your truth and teach me. For you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long. Bring it out in those gaps of life. Bring it out when you're waiting. Seek, that's the next thing in our fast thing. So seek, invite God's help when you're waiting. Psalm 25, verse 16. Psalm 25 is focused on waiting, if you haven't figured that out already. Psalm 25, verse 16. Turn to me and be gracious to me. Verse 17. Bring me out of my distresses. 18. Consider my afflictions and my trouble. Verse 20. Oh, guard my soul and deliver me. Do you hear those requests? That's a lot of requests in just a few verses. That can fill your waiting. You bring your request to the Lord while you're waiting. Seek Him. We are not in control. So you might as well go talk to the one who is. Okay? And then trust. Final step is embracing by faith the contentment and spiritual rest that come from knowing God and be trusted. Listen to David. David again at near the end of Psalm 25. This is what he says in verse 19. Follow. Consider how many are my foes, and with what violent hatred they hate me. Guard my soul and deliver me. Let me not be put to shame, for I take refuge in you. May integrity and uprightness preserve me, for I wait for you. You hear the beauty of that prayer? May integrity and uprightness preserve me, for I wait for you. Psalm 27, very much the same, verse 13 and 14. I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. Typically, when we come to these retreats, we take some time to break out into small groups, and I would like to do that now. And I have some wonderful questions for you. I will have to read them to you. I have them in the slides. I didn't have them in the notes. So, very quickly, let me get to those. Working back and forth with an iPad. Somebody who's the natural leader of the group, you can be taking these to heart. The rest of you can then correct them. Here are the questions, and we'll break into groups of 4 or 5. We have 6. We'll just kick you out. Just chill. Where's your focus when you're forced to wait? And that's not where should your focus be when you're forced to wait. It's where is your focus when you're forced to wait? What is your attitude when you have to wait? What are your thoughts about waiting fast? We're going to let's take 15 minutes to deal with that, and then